Hello and welcome to another edition of this Legend of Korra book-free review series. This edition we are talking about Long Live the Queen. A lot of really interesting stuff happened this episode. Chief among them being that Zahir just straight up murdered the Earth Queen, which is possibly one of the darkest moments in all of Avatar. I mean, the introduction of, say, bloodbending is certainly like way up there, and every instance of bloodbending ever occurring. But with this introduction of airbending being more lethal than the show has thus far demonstrated it to be, I think we all knew that, like, you know, had a feeling that airbenders were capable of doing this, just ripping the air straight out of somebody's lungs. We all knew that that was possible, but I think we all suspected that because Legend of Korra and Avatar The Last Airbender were kind of intended for a younger audience, but just ended up having a more grown-up audience, that they would never go there, that they would never choke a character to death on TV, on kids' TV, but they did. They killed the Earth Queen, and that scene. I think you are kind of meant to be really conflicted about it as an audience member, because it is murder. Like Zahir, it wasn't self-defense. Like there was no like lives in peril or what have you. Zahir just killed her, like outright killed her, because he believed at that point in time it was the quickest way to achieve what he needed to achieve. He assassinated her essentially, and yeah. But then you mix that with the fact that the Earth Queen is a horrible, horrible tyrant, and her people are suffering because of her existence. So you're like, well, murder's wrong. Like, the way Zahir is approaching this situation is morally questionable, but at the same time, how many people benefit from the Earth Queen's death? How many people's lives are actually better because of this? I've kind of skipped all the way to like the main point in this episode. There's other stuff that's going on. Obviously, the reason why Zahir and his group are in Ba Sing Se is because they've taken Mako and Bolin there as a bargaining chip. They wanna try and get Avatar Korra off of the Earth Queen, who had captured her last episode. But things go awry. The Earth Queen starts demanding information from the group. Oh, that's it. The Red Lotus claim to know where the airbenders are. The airbenders that escaped her army training camp. They claim to know where they are, so that was an extra bargaining chip that they were going to use to try and get Avatar Korra off of the Earth Queen. I don't think they were ever intending to actually tell her. I think what was going to happen was the Avatar got handed over to them, and then they just carry out what they carried out in this episode, where they assassinate her and then bring down the inner walls of Ba Sing Se, so the people are free from the class divide that the walls represent. These villains continue to be much more nuanced and complex than a lot of the villains that we've seen in this series. They're not. It doesn't seem like there's going to be like a twist, like with Amon or so many other characters. It seems like these guys genuinely believe what they believe. They genuinely believe in this anarchist philosophy of no governments and no leaders. A really telling scene is the scene where the Red Lotus bust into the radio broadcast room to tell everyone that the Earth Queen is dead. You are free from this government. Do as you please. Minghua just holds up the guy who operates the radio and says, "Do you really want to get in the way of us? This guy just took down the Earth Queen." And Zahir just, says, "Stop! No, we're here to help people like this guy. We're not here to, destroy the Earth Nation people. Just the government that's been corruptly controlling them and taking their money and all sorts." It's a really interesting situation the writers have put themselves in this season, because in a lot of ways what Zahir has done is beneficial to the world. It's just the means, really. That's what Aang would argue. Aang from the original series, like, he wouldn't have killed the Earth Queen. He would have recognised that she was a problem, but he would have sorted it out another way. But then again, would his other ways have really fixed the problem? That's the question. Zahir has proved that his more direct method, his more no-nonsense, let's cut out the weed approach to problem solving is effective. Of course, now the Earth Kingdom is going to be rioting, there's going to be looting and stuff like that, but I think it's kind of part of the anarchist philosophy that, like, once we institute this stuff, like, at first it's going to be mad, mad, mad all the time, but then eventually there'll be just a natural order to things that will come about over time without anyone writing the rules in a book or anything like that. It's really interesting. All that stuff with Zahir in the Earth Kingdom is great content. Really, asking the audience to really question how they feel about this entire scenario. I'm sure it will get a bit more dark when we start approaching the other leaders, the other world leaders, when Zahir comes face to face with, say, like, I don't know if she's going to turn up this season, but I know the Fire Lord is Zuko's daughter, and I can't imagine she's going to govern the Fire Nation the same way that the Earth Queen has been governing the Earth Kingdom, just simply because she has Zuko as her mentor. You can see how the Earth Queen came about because of how stupid the Earth King was in the last Airbender season. But and like the President of the United Nations, he's an idiot, but he's not morally bankrupt in the same way the Earth Queen is. So that's, if Zahir ever comes face to face with him, that scene will probably be a lot less morally grey, because stupidity is a lot worse a crime than actual corruption, actual knowing manipulation and tyranny. All that stuff is great. I love it. The Korra side story, and it really is that. So our main character is the side story, the B plot this episode, is less interesting. It's kind of just Flight of the Phoenix, isn't it? The film. I've gotten the name wrong, haven't I? I've gotten the name of that film wrong. But anyway, there's a film, I believe it's called Flight of the Phoenix, where people crash land in the desert and they have to rebuild the plane to escape. It's very reminiscent of that. It's great. Well, the thing that's great about this side story is Asami finally getting to show off why she's an important member of this team. She's much more methodical and forward-thinking than Korra is. Just the way they escape, and I really like those two as a pair. I find the whole Mako Asami relationship dull as dishwater, but I really like Asami and Korra whenever they're together in situations like this. because they complement each other really well. Korra's a force of nature. She she goes through things. It's like the whole karate philosophy towards fighting your opponent. You don't go around them. You don't do quick clever things. You just go through them. Whereas Asami's the one who finds the more indirect approach to solving problems. So I just like that she was the one that freed them, and then she's like, okay, you're free now, Korra, unleash your fury, because you don't really need to be as smart as I do to get out of bad situations. You're basically the most powerful being on the planet. So that was good. There was a sand shark, which I wasn't a fan of, not because it was badly designed or anything. It's great, like a great creature. I just happen to have a serious phobia of sharks, so every time it came up, I was like, so I didn't like that, just purely for personal reasons. Yeah, so we end Asami and Korra's side story back in the Misty Palms oasis. With Korra's dad, Zuko, Lin Beifong, and that's it, I believe. I may have forgotten. So they're there, and they're just hearing about the news from Ba Sing Se that the walls have crumbled and the Earth Queen is dead. So it'll be exciting to see what happens in the next episode. That we're really gearing up to, like the end game here. And I don't know about you lot, but I'm not sure they're going to actually end this season with a definitive ending. Like, I kind of hope there's a cliffhanger and that the Red Lotus continue to be villains into season 4, because throughout one of the key things that for me that makes the original series better than Korra is that the original series had this continuous storyline. There were loads of like mini stories within the filler episodes and stuff like that, but there was this continuing arc throughout all 3 seasons. Like, you knew from the first episode what the Aang's objective was, all the way right to the end. And they set up plot points like well in advance. Like, you think about how far in advance Sozin's Comet was established in the original series, how far in advance Day of Black Sun was established. Like, they really focused on long form storytelling in the original series, whereas Legend of Korra has been a bit stop and start, which is fine. Like, the actual stories contained within each season, less so season 2, but like this season and season 1 have all had really great, well-written stories within them, but it's just a bit of a shame. It's like, introduce a new threat and then the threat is over, and then we introduce a new threat and then threat is over, whereas the original series had that continuous long arc. But so I just think season 4 would benefit from continuing the story that we've got here in season 3. I just think it would be an interesting move. And these guys feel like last season villains, do you know what I mean? Like, they feel like the bad guys, rather than just, oh, here's a bad guy we come up with just to fill the time. These guys feel important. So I would like this season to end on a cliffhanger if possible. We'll see. It'd be a shame to lose these villains, I think, because I think Zahir is one of the best villains in this universe. He's really well written. His motivations make sense, and he's not easy to just paint as, morally bankrupt. Like, he has some fair points. His approach might be questionable, but the results are arguably beneficial to the world. So, I continue to be impressed with season 3 of Korra. It continues to be great. I've got very little to criticise, other than maybe the fact that the B storyline in this episode is a bit it's just a bit dull. Like, it's not bad. Like, there was no moments of like awfulness. It was just kind of, it's not as interesting as what's going on in Ba Sing Se. So yeah, that's my opinion on Long Live the Queen. See you next time.